first panel discussion, Inspiring Inclusion, featuring a stellar lineup of esteemed individuals who have made remarkable contributions in their respective fields. This engaging discussion will be moderated by Mr. Saurabh Atri, Director of Global Learning, Menu Life, and Ms. Tabassum Muhammad, Director of Outreach, King. Mr. Saurabh and Ms. Tabassum, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that, Shaunama, and thank you so much, Fazna. It was such a beautiful opening session. Mel, thank you for having us here. This is such an important moment that we've all gathered here today. First of all, wishing all of you a very happy Women's Day. We've just seen a remarkable day yesterday, where women have come to the forefront, and today we are seeing such a remarkable growth of, I call it humanity, because that's what today's conversation is about. It's about humanity and how can women bring that care and compassion. So let me kind of share some perspectives as we go deeper today, and I'll be joined by my co-facilitator today, Tabassum, on this journey today. So I'm going to share a quick intro of our panelists today. If possible, Shavuna, if you could unlock the screen, I can share some perspectives for people as well in terms of who the panelists are. If you can allow me to do screen sharing, there'll be some very powerful insights we can talk about as we go forward. Yeah. Let's see if you can unlock the screen as well. Well, as we're talking about this, let me invite, first of all, Tabassum, my co-host, to introduce the panelists for today. Tabassum, over to you.
Thank you, Saurabh. So I'll be introducing our panelists today. First, let's welcome Dr. Mavis Mazura, a luminary in the fields of behavioral science and adult development. Dr. Mavis doesn't just study relationships. She weaves the fabric of inclusion through her groundbreaking work. Her insights into psychological underpinnings of connection and belonging lights the way for us to understand the essence of inclusion. Next, we have Ms. Shilpi Dahiya, an India Iconic Woman Award winner, Mrs. Inspiration title holder, and Mrs. Singapore 2016, whose entrepreneurial spirit of launching Womenistry, a platform for empowering women, is matched only by her dedication to building inclusive leadership cultures. Shilpi's journey from a visionary leader to an influential coach embodies the power of transforming challenges into inclusive opportunities. Her story is a testament to the belief that everyone has a role in championing diversity and inclusion. Joining us from the halls of policy and change is Dr. Mariam Shakila, an honorary consul of Belgium to Maldives, the founder and president of Addu Women's Association, CEO of Cindy Group of Companies, is a pioneer who has reshaped the landscape of inclusion through her work in public health and government. Dr. Shakila's expertise in turning inclusive policy into action offers us a blueprint in integrating diversity and equity into the fabric of society. Ms. Melrose Angeles from Singapore is an HR director at Man Pacific Services. With over 2 decades in HR, she specializes in human capital and development across sectors of hospitality. Mel is a fervent advocate for women's Professional Speakers Association. He is actively involved in community development. Passionate about women's empowerment, Hussein believes in inclusive decision-making and advocates for opportunities for women to lead, focusing on their resilience and the importance of their leadership and emotional a journalist and an advocate whose storytelling transcends borders to spotlight the critical issues women and girls face. Vulsani's dedication to the Vulsani Foundation is a beacon of hope, reminding us that the fight for inclusion is global and every voice matters. We are excited to have our esteemed panelists unpack a very important topic of inclusion today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. That was some really appreciate that. So here's a perspective for all of you. If you think about inclusion, now, if you look at the dictionary meaning of inclusion, it says it's the act of including someone or something as part of a group. Now, isn't that ingrained into human personality? If you think about right from childhood, the first person we connect with is our mothers, isn't it? That's the first circle we get included into, isn't it? And then our father comes along and that becomes a second circle we get included into. So inclusion is supposed to grow. So we start with one person, our mother, then we add one more to a father, then becomes our siblings, and then becomes the extended family. If you think about this concept of inclusion, it all starts with growth, one person at a time, isn't it? And it's also human nature to start stopping these circles to a limited capacity. How many circles you have in your life that you are included in? There's a circle of friends at work or colleagues at work. That's one circle we built in our life. The second circle is a circle we have at home, our family. And that's a separate circle. So sometimes we don't mix our work circles with home circles. The third is our friends who we hang out with. Now, some of you may not mix your personal friends with your spouses also. The family does not mix along that well. So you keep that separate as well, isn't it? So what you'll notice is as humanity, we tend to build life-like circles. Now, I will also share with you as you go along some global data on human personality. This perspective of building circles in our life is tied to human personality. Now, if I break down human personality into 36 or 34 traits, one interesting trait relate, and we've got data. I used to work with Gallup for many years, and Melrose still sort of employs Gallup as an organization in that company. So Gallup, as you know, is a global organization that captures data of the world. For over 28 million people, we've even done an assessment on the human personality. And you know what's the most interesting part of human personality? If you look at beneath these skin bags, and I call these skin bags for a reason, because underneath, we are all very similar. And I hope I can share with you later on some data to support that also out there. But what's common trait in either men or women is what we call a trait of relator. So how do we form these circles of inclusion is based on relatability. So if you think about at the family level, we may relate to some family members and we may not. That becomes our inner circle. Similarly, that circle, when it becomes to a community level, becomes societies. At the country level, that becomes states or religions. At the world level, that becomes countries. To break through those circles, to bring a circle of inclusion, we need to create relatability. So when we build trust, when we connect with people from different cultures, is the starting point of inclusion. And that's the topic we want to talk about today, is how do we create a deeper sense of human connection through relatability. So Tabassum, I know you would have some questions for our panelists today. Let's explore and unpack some of those perspectives so we can really hear from their wisdom. What have they seen work in their organizations when it comes to inclusion? Tabassum.
My first question would be to Dr. Mavis. Could you discuss the psychological aspects, cultures, and their impact on well-being?
Thank you for sharing that, for asking that question. It's a great honor to be here, and what an amazing event. Thank you to the organizers to be gathering together talking about women empowerment. So I think when you look at the psychological aspects of belonging, I think, Safra has already mentioned that it is on our DNA, it's our nature one of the human needs, psychological needs we have, is a need for belonging. We have a need for belonging. So when people enter a space or get into an organization, before they can even think about how they will contribute and perform, they are asking themselves at a subconscious level, do I belong? Am I needed? Am I valued? Will I be rejected? And when we sense that we are not going to be valued and we are not needed, or the system is not showing that we're welcome, we then start to self-protect. On self-protection, because if you're in an environment where you're not needed, going back to our natural instinct as humans, the reason we had tribes and belong to tribes is because you were safer in your tribe. If we were expelled by your tribe, you were out there to die. So if you go into an environment that is actually showing you signals that you are not wanted and needed here, your brain, your survival brain, quickly gets you into a fight, flight, or survival mode, where you start to actually just start to protect yourself instead of thinking about how you can actually contribute. And that in itself, when you start to get focused on self-protection, you actually are now, almost like sabotaging yourself, but also sabotaging the system, because you're no longer able to contribute fully, but also you're no longer, able to trust the system. So your contribution really is diminished. So that is the psychological part, to say the rejection, the human rejection. When you look at the MRI scans in the brain, the human rejection, recorded in the same part of the brain where the pain is if you're cut by a knife. So it is something very, very, if we feel like we don't belong, it's something very psychologically painful for people.
Fantastic insight there, Dr. Mavis. And I would encourage all of you who are listening in, if you haven't got a pen and paper, go and grab it, because the wisdom that you're getting from all the different speakers will stay with you only if you write it down, because you'll be hearing a lot of different perspectives. And the important part is to put those perspectives, internalize them, and then write them down so you can try it out again. That's when we start to build a new world where we set belongingness. Tabassum, let's kind of hear more perspective from leaders here around belongingness and further deeply diving into inclusion as well. Tabassum.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Malvis. I would like to request Dr. Shakila to tell us more about what a culture of inclusion looks like. Dr. Shakila?
Hello, sorry. Yes. Thank you for the opportunity, and then for allowing me to be here, and then also for allowing me to speak. I would say that, unconscious bias is what prevents a lot of people from getting into that framework of inclusivity. We have all experienced unconscious bias in the workplace, whatever work it is, whether it is in politics or whether it is in a other business environment. Often at the discussion table, especially at the beginning of your career, probably people have you get challenged by males to override your voice or be quietened down or give a deaf ear and not allow the person to put in a word. As a woman, we have to speak 10 times louder to be heard half as often. In many instances, what happens is this kind of encounters disheartens the women. They get upset, angry, frustrated. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
We
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of people get upset, angry, frustrated, sad, and give up trying. So my point is that, it is up to us to transform that mindset. And this unconscious bias in the workplace comes in many forms, like not only stereotyping, which we all the time talk about, but also microaggressions, tokenism, unequal opportunities, implicit bias, double standards. The answer to all this, as Madam Fazna mentioned, 50% or over 50% of the population are women. Now, we have the responsibility to look after or to nurture the other 50%. So we can actually train the other 50% not to even unconsciously or subconsciously create this kind of environment where inclusivity is hindered. So it is crucial to acknowledge that the primary barrier for women is this. So remember, the only limits we face are the ones we impose on ourselves. We as women have the ability to break down stereotypes, surpass expectations, and forge our own path towards success. So by recognizing our value, embracing our strengths, and rejecting limitations imposed by societal norms, we can pave the way for a future where women's voices are acknowledged and honored in all aspects of life, where included. Hello, I can hear. Hello.
Mariam, go ahead. No, absolutely. We can hear you. And Dr. Mariam, I have a deeper question on that. This is a really relevant point you've mentioned on unconscious bias. What's your advice to all the listeners listening in? What could they do to overcome this subconscious or unconscious bias that they come with? It's ingrained.
That is what I was going to tell you. You know, like for me, actually, at least for me, in my experience, it is just building my own self-confidence, because I believe that we possess the ability to break down these stereotypes and surpass expectations. It is important to always remember that our greatest enemy and the strongest ally lies within ourselves as women. So every moment in the journey of life presents us with so many choices and opportunities to respond in diverse ways. So we have the power to determine who we want to be. So it is essential to maintain a positive outlook, avoid pessimism, and view the glass as half full rather than half empty, and not to get discouraged by what is happening around you. So we have to strive to cultivate a versatile persona, a woman capable of excelling in various endeavors. So do not let insecurities that you will naturally feel to hinder you from dreaming ambitiously. So in order to thrive in any of these environments, we should not apologize for our femininity, but instead we should demand respect for our womanhood, because we are deserving of it. As women, we are inherently strong, and our focus should not be on becoming stronger, but on altering societal perceptions of our strength. In doing so, we will naturally become stronger. It's actually, I believe, Sora, that our thoughts shape our reality. So we are not defined by our circumstances, but by the choices we make. So our potential is limitless by our own beliefs and willingness to pursue our dreams. So the only obstacle between us and our aspiration is our determination to strive and our faith in the possibility of achieving them. That's my answer to your question.
Beautifully said. I would like to bring in Waysain as well. If you could share your perspective, just kind of building on what Dr. Mariam said about confidence, about unconscious bias. What's your perspective of what could get in the way for inclusion as well?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and to all the panelists here present. Thank you so much, Aminat and the Vice President, for having us here today to have such an important conversation. And I feel that if we have these conversations in our different circles and our different groups, it's going to have a dynamo effect, and it's going to spread out every nook and cranny. So that said, I would like to first of all start by, our context, because we understand that from the yesteryears, patriarchy has made such a way that women and maybe youths as well are not included in decision making, in access to opportunities and resources. And so inclusion is equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. Or UNESCO says inclusion is a process that helps to overcome barriers, limited presence, participation, and achievement. And with that definition, it just goes to show what we have been experiencing in our community and in our countries, where it is automatically, or it's a systemic something where people are not, women in particular, are not given the opportunity to sit at decision-making tables, to have equal access to resources and to opportunities. And this has been built in a systemic way. Is to remove the barriers that impede women to have access to these resources and opportunities. And like Shelley Chilson said, if they do not invite you, you bring a folding chair to the table. And so gone are the days where we think that someone is going to hand over to you a piece of cake, or someone is going to invite you to a decision-making table. That's why we need more assertive women who are going to be able to push through, who are going to be able to add their voices to the conversation, because I observed in my own setting that in a parliament where we have 180 parliamentarians, we just have about 30 women. And so in such a setting, it's very difficult for us to have our own agenda, pushed through. We want to talk about women's health. We want to talk about menstruation. We want women that are going to, put the issues that women face on the table. And when we do not have this representation, it becomes very difficult for us to have, equal access to resources and opportunities and gender equality. That is why we have a program that we run, One Girl, One Dream, to be able to promote education, especially in the rural areas, because according to UNESCO, in my country, 70% of girls are illiterate, especially in the rural community. With this kind of statistics, it's very difficult for a future where we are going to have inclusion or inclusive future. That is why, together with other organizations, we are pushing for more girls to go to school. Because if we have more girls in school, they can be able to take the better decisions for themselves, for their families, and also lead better families and improve the quality of life for them and their families. Secondly, we have another program, Let Girls Lead Now, because we realize that leadership is not the same in different contexts. You will find in an office where we have ministers, women will be given the Minister of Women's Affairs, the Minister of Social Affairs, but when it comes to issues like the Minister of External Relations, the Minister of Defense, the Minister of those powerful ministries, it is always men that are in those positions. And so through the Let Girls Lead program, we want to put in the minds of girls that you can be in those positions too. It's not a man's thing. And we need women to thrive not only in the weaker positions of leadership, but in stronger positions of leadership. And we are trying to also form a stronger voice of advocacy, because we need women who can be able to advocate for the rights of women and girls, because it's very scary. Advocacy is very scary in our context, because every time you want to raise your voice, you're either locked up or you're put in prison or you're killed even. We have lost many gender advocates. And so it's very important for us to build a stronger advocacy network where we can come together as women and fight for the rights of. We say a woman's enemy is another woman. And so this agenda is being pushed by men themselves. And so if we as women recognize this strategy and come together and say, no, we need to be together, we need to work hand in gloves to be able to push our agenda, to be able to have more women in offices, in workplaces, in the family setting, in all the decision-making sector of life, then we can be able to have our voices added to the conversation. We can be able to have our agenda put on the table, and we can be able to push for inclusion in all sectors of the economy. Thank you.
Excellent point, Velison. And a really couple of interesting perspectives she spoke about was opportunity. Inclusion is about opportunity. Let's kind of hear some new perspectives also around how do you build a culture of inclusivity, especially in your sector. We'd like to bring in a large organization. We'd love to hear a man's perspective also in inclusion, and how do you create that inclusion within the workplace based on what you've heard so far as well?
Yeah, very good. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. Lovely to be here. Also, I want to thank Madam Fazna for sharing some kind words towards what you observe at the MAP convention. I have a couple of points to highlight, I think, in regards to this. And when we look at the topic we are speaking today, I think when we look back the last 20 years and today, there certainly have been real improvement across the world in terms of creating cultures of inclusivity, and also the really empowering the women and encouraging them to take lead, not just in terms of having more women in boards or office space or where else. Of course, this is very different in terms of different parts of the world. I understand that, but definitely it has become 10 years or even more. So my hope is that definitely it will get better. I think when we speak about the culture of inclusivity and how we do that, I spend most of my time in the hospitality industry as my sort of a full-time job of many hundred of things I do. I think what we normally what we practice here is that we don't see inclusivity as a number. So for example, if you look at a board, let's say you have a board of directors in a resort, and you want to create a board. Sorry, did you say something?
No, go ahead, continue, please.
Oh, sorry, I heard someone say something. So let's say if you look at a board for a resort, and then the board is supposed to have, let's say, 3 members, 7 members, and when we go like, okay, we got to have inclusivity here and diversity. So let's get 3 women's and the remaining happy, and you put a picture and say we got inclusivity and we got diversity. Ta-da! No, because that is not inclusivity we are talking about. It's about, do we really have the say of those 3 women in the board in your company strategic objectives and decision making? I think the biggest problem we have is that we go like inclusivity. Okay, let's get everybody involved. So let's put some numbers here and then we are happy. No, what we need more is the questions around the culture of encouragement where we can get the women to be included in these activities. For example, if we have a board where when it comes to the decision making, of course, in most cases, in the board members, if they are obviously gentlemen, they probably have their ways of getting around and they put the boards together. But someone in the board needs to realize. So you can have separate one-on-ones. So, for example, there was a time when we created a disciplinary committee in a resort, and it is 5, and obviously in most cases I'm the tiebreaker. So we had 2 women leaders and 2 other male leaders and myself as the chair of the committee. And I realized as when we get into the sort of discussions around, for example, let's say you have a harassment case at workplace, or maybe we need to terminate an employee for breaking a policy of the company. I noticed at the early stage, this was about 5 years ago, they wouldn't speak much in the board meetings or this kind of, they would just keep quiet and nod. And I took them aside and I said, I was thinking that we have an open conversation here, but I see you're very quiet. And then they told me something which amazed me. And they said, well, the way the meeting goes, it sounds like I acknowledge only their views. Change my way of thinking. So what I do the meetings now is that I send what they have to read in the meeting prior to the meeting. They have to read it, prepare, and they'll have to come up with the questions. And I start starting with them, and I'm the last one to speak. And sometimes, there's a tie. I would actually ask from the women leaders in that committee to say, what do you think the decision that we should make? And then it's completely changed. And then there was a whole, I would say what I have seen in the last 2 years or so, I think it has been completely different. The same goes for our compensation and benefit committees. The same goes for our organizational culture. So I think what we are looking for really is creating a culture of encouragement, because you can give a seat to a women person, but that doesn't get the job done. You got to go around and encourage this person and really look at it. I think the other thing I also want to highlight is especially around obviously today yesterday is obviously the day, and I think was to celebrate in the day. And yesterday I was in Mali launching a book of one of the women leader in the Maldives, Dr. Muna, and I spoke in the event too. And I said that one of the things that we need as women leaders is we need to question today how much we encourage each other in our community. I am somebody in my team. Majority, except 2-3 are women, and they're all Gen Z. You can imagine my life as their leader will be like unbelievable. Yeah, yesterday was the International Women's Day. I said to them, organize, and they did they organized the best International Women's Day ever I have seen in my 15 years in the hospitality industry. And I was not even there. I actually organized flowers for them. I was in Mali before an event, but when I realized actually that is the true. You guys will organize this because I know you will do a better job than us, because we, sometimes when we organize this little red carpet and a flower and a bouquet, and I said, and they did something amazing. And some of the most experienced leaders in the organization here, they actually said that it was the best, it was the most amazingly organized event, right? Now, my point is this. we got to question, as women leaders, how are we encouraging each other? Are we accepting healthy compassions among each other? I believe the community can be changed only if we even support each other, take each other, because especially in the Maldives culture and even in organizations, there's this unhealthy compassions, and how much we encourage people, because there's statistics and there's research everywhere that shows women leaders are emotionally the most intelligent people. There's a lot of research data that shows it. And when you put a women leader in a place, they perform. Years ago, one of the best decisions were made by back then the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, Justin Ardern, right? And I think there's a couple of stories like this. So we should be encouraged about it, and we should really, instead of just speaking about today and International Women's Day yesterday and today, I think we should really look at what can I do as a women leader to do that. And what I have been practicing now is really how can I look at people and bring them more into the decision making and making sure that they feel good when a decision is made, that they have their voice. So when we do a questionnaire or something, and if I don't get enough responses, I go and speak to them individually. And I say, I didn't see any response. Was there any reason why? Is there something that, and then they'll speak about it. So I think my keyword here today would be really, you got to create a culture of encouragement instead of, because inclusivity, I think we're far better. When Madam Fazna mentioned about MAP, our HR convention, where we had, and it is by design in our exco, we did that. We wanted to bring more people. We said, we get chances all the time. People call us and said, and our president Ahmad Ibrahim, myself, and Ali as co-founders, we said by design we're going to do that. Hence the reason why we approached those women leaders, and we said, look, we want you to get, and for some of them, it's their very first time in an international stage of 400 people. Some of them have been entrepreneurs for 20 years, but they were given the opportunity. But we put them there, and we are very proud. And that's the role model we want to show to everybody. So I hope this sort of encourage some of the points I want to share. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think there's a theme that you've heard from all the speakers, right? Afif has brought it towards a word called encouragement. So everything every other leader has spoken about. Fazna spoke about that, women need support, right? They have, they will take care of kids. If there's support there, that then they have the empowerment to do more. Yeah. Afif spoke about encouragement, that, we need to encourage women to also create those opportunities. We talked about opportunities. You can have the opportunity, but there's no support system, the person may not thrive also out there. You can start to see, as you move, the bias. Sometimes we may restrict ourselves internally. So, Tabassum, I know you have a couple of other speakers to invite in. Let's kind of hear a few more perspectives on this journey we are tying together of belongingness, of encouragement and empowerment. Tabassum.
Ms. Shilpi, I would like to ask you, you have journeyed across different cultures, living and working in multiple countries, and have evolved a new perspective in inclusivity. Could you share your best practices in your organization?
Well, thank you, Tabassum. Thank you, everyone. And I really, first of all, want to thank you for inviting me and sharing this platform for such inspirational people here. And I must say that I'm very proud to see, men also included in this conversation, not just women, and learning their perspective. I feel that the world is moving in the right direction, and what Imelda, Mel, and you guys are doing, IWD, kudos to the team. I think we are moving toward the betterment of the society. So thank you for this initiative. And thank you to all of you for bringing this topic up and having the discussion. From my point of view, I would say that I'm born in India. I moved to Singapore. I worked in Myanmar. I worked in Philippines. I can call myself as a foreigner woman, even in my own country, because I don't know where I belong, right? Being part of 80 diverse group of people, different cultures. And one experience that I would like to share with you from my journey is the experience that I got in Myanmar. So I was called to run this biggest and highest rated TRP show called Myanmar Idol, season 3. And it was a totally big, like a new country for me. There was a language barrier. The team who I had to work with had worked with season 1 and season 2. And I had to actually join the team for season 3. And as a leader who had to make a lot of decisions on my own. And for the first few weeks, it was a really difficult journey because I'm a woman coming from a different region altogether with totally different background. And first 2 weeks was the most difficult. But overall, then I realized the first thing that I need to do right is to embody myself into the culture of the. It's not just about I have to feel included by myself or they should include me. I think that mindset that I had when I started my career, that got me into wrong, step up on a wrong foot. But over these years, I think I gained some nice wisdom that it is my responsibility as a person to penetrate and embody the culture where I'm actually going and finding my belongingness. Therefore, the second week onwards, I started wearing lungi. I learned their dialect. I learned about their food choices. I started having the dinners and lunches together with the crew team, and we had a wonderful, beautiful shared experiences that opened the heart out of the crew towards me. And then we started talking about the work that we are going to do from there on for 1 year to make the show successful. And I would also say it was not only from my side, the learning and seeing that, okay, she's making the initiative. And I actually broke those barriers of unfamiliar territory. I bring something familiar to them so that we can start the conversation on a right foot. And they also opened their heart and mind and their background to me and invited me to be part of their culture so that, because of that, we were able to run the most successful season 3 for Myanmar Idol. So the biggest takeaway is inclusion doesn't take place where there is lack of trust, where there is insecurities, where there is fear from both sides. So once we actually break these barriers of lack of trust, insecurities, and fear, only then from both ends we can invite two parties together. And it's the duty from both, from women's side, from people. So, and what really brings this is the education and awareness, especially to the talk that we are doing today. And the more we have conversation, the more we educate ourselves, the more we bring inclusion into picture. I would say that yes, sometimes I'm a victim and also a culprit. In my career, I have been a culprit and I have done it myself, and I will not shy away from acknowledging it. But over the years, I've learned it. When I was a victim, it feels so bad. But when I'm a culprit, I don't even realize when I'm doing it. The major pushback in my career I have got from my own gender. And I will not deny that. Yes, I was accepted by the gender very graciously, but sometimes I get the major pushback from my own gender. Now, when we are building these conversations, it's opening a lot of doors and opportunities for women. And these kind of talk and conversations are bringing in more opportunities for women topic, and this is what I have to share from my end today.
Thank you, Shilpi. Well said. And kind of shows an important part that inclusion is our responsibility. We also have to make the effort for both being included and including others. Sometimes our own subconscious biases don't allow that to happen. And that starts with what she talked about was trust and security, sort of building that with each other. Whether you're from different culture, different people, it's important that we all find common relatable factors. Really well said, Shilpi. Melrose, you work for a large organization which has hotels in multiple countries. And of course, you work with multiple races, genders, cultures all across. Share more insights. How do you do that in Pan Pacific in your organization of bringing that inclusivity and also what challenges you face? Melrose.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to share with everybody and to be able to somehow meet the rest of the panelists. And just earlier, she actually traveled everywhere, right? From different parts of the world. I actually came from, I basically was born and raised in the Philippines, and I just been in Singapore for I've been here for 60 years. And prior to that, I also been to Dubai, to Qatar, to, to Bangkok, to Vietnam, and so on and so forth. So this sense of belongingness that we have been hearing about from the rest of the panelists, it actually, I mean, it comes quite, quite often. And I believe that what is important is for us to be able to really understand about this word being inclusive. So with the definition, as what Tura was mentioning earlier on, to me, it's basically more on aiming to provide equal access to opportunities and resources, especially for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. So these are those being physical or intellectual disabilities or belonging. I mean, I've been working with this group under the Pan-Pacific Hotels Group for 10 years now, and we are very proud that as a leading inclusive employer in the hospitality industry, we actually started off with this inclusive hiring, and we are very focused into person with disability. So this is where I wanted to share with everyone. We actually started on in year 2016, and we actually collaborated with the government agencies here, who is like SG Enable and so on. So under the service suite, because we have a total of 5 hotels in Singapore and 3 services, I'm in charge of the 3 services here. And we started off trying to work with schools for special education. And from there, we are able to somehow ensure that all these students would actually will have opportunity to transition from school to being what are we supposed to do as an employer in order for them to have that sense of belonging, to have that sense that they can also contribute. Because as a group, we actually committed to enable individuals with disabilities, and at the same time, we are actually committed as well to provide meaningful and sustainable employment opportunities at the hotel side. Yeah, so I believe everyone is aware that in Singapore, it's so one of the challenges that we do have here is getting locals to work in certain functions in the organization. So when we talk about women, right? So we always stereotype in terms of, like, say an example, security department. So most of those people working in security are all men, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we cannot hire women. So we are actually open. In fact, in my service suite, we actually have a security who is a woman. So we don't actually look at, as mentioned by Afif also earlier, in PI. So at first, when we started into this inclusive hiring, the management is trying to actually look at putting this as a KPI, is a key performance indicator. How many % of person with disability each of the hotels should actually hire? Because if we are not ready to embark into this, it will be very difficult. That is why there is always a process. There is always a journey for us. And this is where we started on with this. And I actually pioneered this in service suites in 2016. And a year after, the rest of the hotels actually followed, followed in this journey as well. So the onboarding process, it takes about 6 months to a year for us to be able to really craft, because you really need to redesign the job when we talk about person with disabilities and so on, because we wanted to ensure that these people are able to contribute and be able to really look at what is their potential here. So we from Pan Pacific Service or from the Pan Pacific Hotels Group, we actually believe that there is always a business case towards this inclusive hiring. First, because it really opens up a source of talent, as I mentioned earlier, that we all face limitations of hiring foreign workers, smaller cohorts of younger locals entering the workforce, and many experienced baby boomers are actually retiring altogether. And if you are working in the hospitality industry, I believe Apif would resonate with me as well, that it's so difficult to find locals to work in the functions such as housekeeping, for example, right? Housekeeping, F&B, and so on and so forth. So this is where we have to ensure that we are able to really craft that task into something that each of these individuals would be able to somehow contribute much into the educate our current workforce. And this is where the culture of inclusivity will come in, because it actually takes time for you to be able to put this as part of the DNA in any organization. Yeah, so we did a lot of training for all the leaders that we have. We send them for inclusive hiring strategies and so on and so forth, in order for them to really understand how is it like, for us to be able to hire all these people with disability. At the same time, the program that we do have is we invite students to have this job shadowing with us. And then from there, we will be able to see which functions in the organization they feel that they can contribute more. And because of that, this is where our existing associates would be more focusing on more complex tasks. And these people with disabilities would actually have opportunity to somehow share, their skills. In fact, one of our directors actually say that these people, we can actually accomplish work, because for us, we tend to do multitasking, right? But for this group of people, they are so focused. If you say, like, if you need to boil these noodles for within 5 minutes, it's really very precise. Within 5 minutes, then they have to take it from, from the stove and stuff like those. Yeah. So basically for us, under the Pan Pacific Network Group, we firmly believe that this is where we are going, and this is going to be a sustainable effort for all of us. Yeah, so we don't consider this as a CSR, corporate social responsibility, whereas we consider this as part of a sustainable effort for us to be able to really bring in more, more employment to this group of people. And at the same time, we also wanted to share that this initiative that we have is something that, as a group, we actually receive quite few awards in terms of how we do this going forward, and it becomes part of the company's strategies as well. Yeah, so we are very proud that as a group we are able to have more than 40 of these persons with disabilities now working as full-time within the organization, and they are actually placed in different functions in the organizations as well. And I'm very proud and I'm very happy that I was actually part of that, HR who started off with this program or initiative within this organization. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello?
What I would say is it takes up one person, one mind to say, I will include others. And that one thought, one mind could make a big difference, like you said, right? And to her point, two important aspects to consider for all of us. National mindset for all of us. We like to live life in circles. So how do we make an effort through education? She talked about educating people on inclusive hiring. That's a new way of looking at the world, and that could be educated, skilled up, right? We should think about doing that. Second thing she spoke about was encouragement is one way, but the person also has to contribute, and contribution requires skills, knowledge, experiences for that person to perform, and the support. Even if you fail, it's okay. We're here to support you. And you can see, right, playing to each person's talents and strengths. Somebody we saw was, disabled or differently able, let's call the right word for it. They were able to perform in the best way. Let's kind of bring in Dr. Mariam Shakila. I know you've got some interesting perspectives on this one. We'd love to hear, how have you seen this shape up in all the organizations you manage, Dr. Mariam? Oh, you're on mute. Oh, you're on mute. The mute monster has gotten your...
Before I answer that, important aspects that a lot of our eminent speakers have brought out in regards to inclusion, like, for example, Afif brought out encouragement, and then others brought out education, awareness, and all that. What I would like to state is, that none of them will work in isolation of a lot of other factors that we have to think about. None of them would work like this. So we have to look at so many other things that we do. For example, in our in different areas where I have been working, we bring so many aspects to it in order to encourage. We have to make sure that in the culture that we work with, that we celebrate diversity, for example, equal opportunities, and everyone should be encouraged, and everyone should be made aware that equal opportunities are there for them. And then we walk the talk as well. And then respect and empathy also should be an open communication. Sometimes that is where a lot of issues arise, and support and collaboration. And then again, when I talk about having policies and then practices in a company, policies alone again will not work. You can have, just to tick off a number, you can have lots and lots of policies, but then unless these policies are implemented properly, things will not work. And then training and education, of course. I think if we want to create a culture of inclusion or inclusivity within an organization, whatever organization it is, all these factors need to work together. One in isolation of the other would not work. And also, it is also very, very fashionable for us, like, for example, for a lot of us to put the blame on males. I disagree. And a huge role. But then they are also actually victims of a system that has gone wrong. The education system has gone wrong. Without actually, none of the schools, I don't know whether anybody is doing any gender studies, for example, you know. And then so these are areas, and the men, if they do not act Mr. Macho, or if they do not act with aggression, they feel, oh, I'm not a male. And then so they tend to act like this. Again, it's a subconscious act on the part of the male, not that, you know, the male wants to bring it. And again, I also highlight in my career, both in politics as well as in other areas, I think the biggest challenges that I have come across are from females and not from males. Once I prove, of course, to prove myself takes a while, even with men, but then once I prove, I think I get more
Mariam, this is such an insightful conversation we're building on right now. Let me share some data to validate what Dr. Mariam was talking about. And this might be an eye-opener for all of us to think about the world slightly differently. Yeah. Why do we feel distant from the same gender? Why does support system become a challenge where women may not support women? And we need platforms like the IWD, like Shilpi's, women history, that requires women to come together to support other women. Why is it not happening organically? Now, don't get me wrong, you would have friends, they will support you. But then you have people who are not in your inner circle who may create some negative emotions like jealousy or other aspect that would get in the way for success also, isn't it? Now, the question is why? And that also is a strength. The act of including someone or something as part of a group, right? Bringing people together, that's inclusion, right? Now we do it through belongingness, we do it through encouragement, we do it through bringing people together. And this is ingrained in human personality, as we spoke about this earlier. We have work circles, we have family circles, we have friend circles, we have many different types of circles we speak about in life, right? So culture, religion, and so on and so forth. Country, right? We all feel proud when there's our country is winning a sports competition out there. Now, if I break down human personality for all of us into 34 traits, right? From a global database of 21 million people, and that's a large data set. I wouldn't say it's 100% representative, but 21 million from all around the world is a substantial number. If you break down human personality, here are the top 5 personality traits of people around the world, where you'll see relator shows up at the top, number 4. And what does relator mean? Here's what relator means. Is people who are talented in relator enjoy close relationship with others. They find deep satisfaction in working hard with friends to achieve a goal, one-to-one relationship that they are. But what they also seek is commonalities. So whether it's commonalities of food, of religion, of culture, of skin color, there are many aspects of commonalities we seek in others. But look at what's at the bottom of the list there. Do you guys see what's at the bottom of the list there? What would you say? Just put in the chat. What do you see at the bottom of the list?
Self-assurance.
Absolutely. What does that mean? It means a lot of insecurities. That's what causes the problems. That we may not be comfortable in our own skin. Yeah. And this is an important aspect that we need to build. Every leader here spoke about encouragement, empowerment. The essence is confidence. We need to build confidence through providing opportunities and providing a support system for women to thrive. And it's interesting, when I look at data for men and women, here's interesting. This is women, huh? You see what's the top 5 strength of women around the world? And this is almost 10 million women out there. So it's not a small number. What do you see as the top 5 strength, the 5th strength of women? Empathy. You see it? Empathy. That is where the superpower comes in for women, is the ability to feel, to be able to observe life, to be more sensitive. And here, when I say sensitive, is not a negative word. Sensitive, I mean, it's a positive word where it means our senses are very strong. Women see more, they feel more, they hear more, they taste more, and they touch more. Yeah. Now, if you look at the male comparison, how men and women are similar or different, this will open up a whole new perspective looking at life. Yeah. You'll notice when you look at men and women, the top 4 strengths, achiever, relator, learner, are all the same. Men also have it, women also have it, exactly the same. Yeah, same order, same numbers. What you'll start to see differently is this. Empathy is higher for women and lower for men. Now, it may be intuitive. The other aspect is strategic is lower for women and higher for men. Now, what does that mean, right? Now, tell me, how many of you here love thinking? Raise your hand up if you love thinking. If you love thinking. If you love thinking. Raise your hand up if you love thinking. Now, tell me, when you think, what happens to your eyes? Where do you look? No, seriously. When you think, what happens to your eyes? Where do you look? Question for all of you.
Depends on where you are.
Yeah, so you may look left, right, but here's the interesting part. When you're thinking, what you'll notice, your eyes dilate and you're not looking at anything. You're looking through it, right? The attention is on your thoughts, isn't it? And that's the problem in being empathetic. When our brain takes over, when our thoughts take over, all the other senses shut down, isn't it? So that's the problem when you're sitting down with another human being and having a conversation, then how would we pay attention to their facial expression and body language, which is what empathy means, isn't it? Women are very good in observing facial expression, body language. That's why they have high empathy. Men in general, don't get me wrong, and I'm going to break this down in 2 parts, masculinity and femininity, because men can also have empathy high. Generally, they have lower, but men can also have empathy high, and women can also have empathy lower. Now, here's the challenge. We may have women rising up the food chain and getting board level position. But what's the point of putting another man-like trait into the boardroom when what you need is compassion and care, isn't it? So empathy needs to rise up in the food chain, which I say femininity needs to rise up in the food chain. That's the critical need for the hour. And women do bring more of it, but they need to embrace it. They need to start, being the man in the boardroom. They need to be the women in the boardroom, because that's the real superpower, not shy away from that perspective, isn't it? Because under the skin bags, we are all very similar, barring a few traits, if you think about human personality. Now, the challenge here is relator. Relator tend to be exclusive by nature. That's the problem. We tend to create these circles, and that's where we need to come together as one humanity. So think about gender empowerment. Think about bringing people together. Because the moment we point to differences, we will create separation. We create collective society, it will grow up even more. Science, something to think about. Now, here's the perspective of men and women. Happy to share some of these things there, but let's kind of hear from different leaders. And they say, right, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, because if you look at also just a trait of strategic, loves solutioning. And if you look at restorative, loves identifying problems. So when my wife comes to me and says, I have a problem, and I go into solutioning mode, she might say, no, I don't want your solutions. I want you to understand the problem. Just listen to what I have to say. Yeah. And I'm always thinking solutions, right? And she says, you are the problem. Fix yourself first. The point is, we as human beings have different needs, different perspective. What we need is a commonality to understand each other's perspective. That's when inclusion will become even more stronger. Something worth it. Let's hear from different leaders. Yes, please. Shilpi, go ahead.
Yes. So talking about the data points that you have shared, it's very, very intrinsic data. And thank you for sharing. As a strength coach as well, and I see that where the challenges also comes is from empathy and low self-assurance and high relator. women can see emotions, their thoughts, and they can read the room, their emotions, where they are, what the other person is thinking, where the other person is feeling challenged, or where the other person is feeling insecure. Nothing is hidden when women are empathetic. And when they're insecure, they're unable to react in a way, in an appropriate way. They cannot keep their emotions aside. The leaders actually are the ones who can actually think and react beyond their emotions, right? They can see things clearly, leaving the emotions behind. I think I'm a very empathetic person, and I can share that, this is one of my challenges as well. Sometimes my emotions, my ability to read the room comes in the way of my success, right? However, the self-assurance is not very low, but I do feel sometimes empathy might just come in my way of success. And that's where empathy is important. I'm not saying it is not important, but being aware of your empathetic behavior and when to leave your emotions behind and react in a strategic or maybe in a logical way, bring your logical mind. That is something that comes with education and awareness of your own behavior. That's where I feel that empathy can be in a balcony or a basement or a challenge or basically a bliss. What do you think on that?
Absolutely. Let's hear different perspective from all the different speakers and panelists today. Let's start with, let me bring in first Melrose. Melrose, and then we'll go to Dr. Mavis and Dr. Mariam, and then Veli Sain as well. Melrose, what's your perspective on what you just heard so far? And one statement to summarize your sort of takeaways from today as well, Melrose.
Okay, so my key takeaway for can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, because I didn't have my earpiece. So my takeaway for today's discussion is basically as women, it's important that we are always able to speak up. There's always opportunity to speak up, and as what the data that you have shown, Surab, is actually women has high empathy, yet we have a very self-assurance, right? This is where insecurity comes in. Maybe because we are lacking confidence. And because of that, this is where as women, we have to ensure that we know exactly what our strengths, what are the skills that we have to improve on, and we have to build on that. So that is my key takeaway for today. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Well said, Melrose. And this is something for all of you to think about. How can you create empowerment, encouragement, and education for others to build them up? It's each of our responsibility to build the next person, the next woman, because let's be honest, we do have the weight of history on us. Historically, women haven't gotten the opportunities for support. And that's what we're trying to have these conversations to change that, isn't it? And that can only change if we provide an education system that builds skills, knowledge, and experiences, because that is what's going to build confidence. I say, people can be born with confidence or you can build it. So born with confidence, great. You know you've got it in you. And normally the elder child in the house typically has it because they make a lot of decisions for the household. In our Asian society, typically, we have elders make decisions for others. So that's what also pulls confidence down. Because if I'm not making decisions, how do I be confident? Isn't it? And that's something to think about, is how do we empower people with decision making and support them? Pass or fail doesn't matter. We provide the support system. Dr. Mavis, what's your takeaway? What would you like to close the session out with from your insights?
Thank you, Sofra. I think my takeaway is the conditioning, reconditioning, and deconditioning, unlearning and relearning. What we need to learn so that we can have more women included in decision-making positions, or have access to opportunities and resources. Because when you look even at the data that you've just provided, my own sort of understanding around personality is that it's crystallized thinking and feeling. So the system you are in just really condition you to be more empathetic as a woman. You are given a doll as you're growing up to play with it. So you develop your empathy skills. So definitely your strategic skills are low because you have not been trained, you've not been conditioned. So it's really looking into both the education system, the organizational system. When you look at policies and practices, they are there to shape people and condition people to practice and behave a certain way. So how do we get into the system, organizational system, and begin to decondition, recondition, and so that we can start to have women who are more empowered. Because the systems, whether human system, organizational system, social system, they are all busy shaping us up and we end up being where we are. So if we are to have women who are empowered, women who've got access to opportunities, we need to change their mindset and make it okay for them to say, it's okay for me to have money. It's okay for me to negotiate my salary. So we need to start shaping those mindsets so that we are, participating and including ourselves where we need to include ourselves, bringing other women as well, because when you haven't actually built the inclusive culture or mindset, yes, that's where the competition comes in. Yes, that's where the denigration of other women comes in, because you haven't been taught, you haven't been conditioned to say it's okay for all of us to rise. So I think for me, that's my takeaway. Thank you.
Really well said there, Dr. Mavis. And something for all to think about is, how do we create that mindset, a shift in mindset that requires both self-awareness, who am I, how do I operate, what are my biases, what are my limitations, how I have grown up with conditioning, and what do I need to shift to create a new me? And that requires both self-awareness and others' awareness on it. Let's hear from Welisen. Welisen, let's hear your takeaways from today's closing comment.
Yeah, I'll just summarize everything we have said here by saying nothing about me without me. Nothing about us women without us women. Nothing about us youths without us youths. Nothing about people with disabilities without people with disabilities. We need to have our voices on the discussion table on issues that touch our lives. So to not be passive about your life, be it politics, be it in social or any level. Add your voice to the conversation because your voice matters.
Absolutely. Thank you, Welisen. You've sort of summarized it really well. And let's kind of bring in a male voice. Afif, what would you like to say, your closing comments, your takeaways from today?
Yeah, thank you very much. Great conversation. I just want to make quickly 2 points. I think it also relates to one of the points that was mentioned by Shilpi earlier. I think when we raise the concerns of inclusivity and not getting the opportunities, we also have to be very careful about the context that we do that, because otherwise it certainly will sound, I think, will come out as more of a blame and shame and excuses. Because such things also needs to be addressed, and as a speaker I often encounter those things in audiences when we speak about those things, because probably maybe that community didn't have the opportunity to speak about it, and because there are certain forums and opportunities where you raise concerns, as it may sound like a blame or a shame or an excuse, but then it is the responsibility of everyone collectively to take personal responsibility in ensuring what we are discussing today is just more, taking a little bit forward. And the other point is that I want to really emphasize on the point that by putting a number of people in a board or in any activity does not make it inclusive. For example, if let's say you create a board of 6 people and you put 3 people from the Maldives and 3 people from Mauritius, and maybe the topic is about innovation excellence. What if these 6 people share the same blind spot? You're not going to achieve what you intend to achieve. So focus not just on the number, but look at the collective intellectual thinking that you want to put on that board. So it could be 2 women, it could be 7, but where everybody has a collective sharing. I think in the Maldives this is very much needed, because a lot of organizations are still focusing on 7. So it means 3 plus 3 and 1. Those days are already gone. But we need to because there are some wonderful women leaders out there who could actually contribute. And you could have a board of 7 people, and 2 women can actually add more contribution than the others, because it really matters about the experience, the experience and the life that they have gone so far. So I think this is the closing remark, and me and our organizations, this is really our approach moving forward for many years ahead. Thank you.
Beautiful, Afif. That's such a powerful point. And I have a question as a follow-up to everyone here, to what Afif said, right? Just putting numbers, is it good enough? So let me ask you, diversity, equity, inclusion is really taking center stage, and rightly so. We need to put attention on those perspectives out there. Now, let me ask you all a question, and go to the chat or just use hand gestures to answer. Can you be in a diverse team and not belong? To Dr. Mavis's point earlier. Can you be in a diverse team and not belong? Is it possible? Give me a thumbs up, or go to the chat and write down yes. Yes. You can be in a group of many different cultures and you may not feel you belong there. Possible, right? Now, can you be in a be included over a dinner conversation, but you may not feel you belong there? Is it possible? So can you be included and not belong? Yes. Can you be included but not belong? Yes.
Yes.
Possible, right? People may invite you for lunch, but none of you have a good relationship with. You may not feel you belong there, correct? Third, can you be in a fair environment and not belong? Can you be in a fair environment and not belong? Because you may not have a relationship with all those people out there, isn't it? So isn't belonging a deeper word than even inclusion, right? And that's what it is. For true inclusion to happen, it's not just putting three people and three people, they need to feel they belong there. And the driver is what Shilpi spoke about earlier, was around that trust and security. Shilpi, you want to bring your closing point as well on that point?
Yes, thank you, Saurav. I totally agree. Am I audible?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I totally agree. The trust factor is there, but also as a woman, I would say don't listen to me or don't give me a seat on the table just because I'm a woman. I bring experience, I bring value to the team, and I add value to your organization. Then you give me an opportunity. Am I audible? Sorry.
Absolutely, absolutely, Shilpi. Well said. And that's what we need to rise up. All women here need to rise up.
Yes.
On the skills, on the knowledge, on the experiences, and you should feel you belong.
Yeah.
Let's leave our, what I call, that stigma that we have on ourselves, what do you call that word that, you may feel you don't belong. No, we all belong. We all belong. We're all equals on planet Earth, isn't it? Dr. Mariam, your closing comments on this important topic.
Yeah, I think, again, I think my closing remarks here would be that around us, even on this panel, we have got a lot of successful people who have broken these barriers and who are now feeling included. I think there are a lot of lessons to learn from them, from people like everybody here and then also elsewhere. So these people obviously have shattered the barriers and defied all the stereotypes and have shown they have shown unparalleled courage and resilience. So they refused, I'm sure all of us have refused to be defined by societal expectations and instead embrace the femininity and individuality. So I think we all should learn from that. And then also a lot of, I think it is fear that stops people, even when you are put on a board and then not to be included or not to feel included or not to feel belong, is because of the fear that they have, the insecurity that they have. So for that, of course, not only education would help, lots of mentorship is required, like what Afif mentioned, that he actually did these people, the simple action of him going and then talking to them. Afif has actually mentored them in a manner that they came forward. I think these are things that each one of us in our organizations need to do. And then all of us have shown leadership, and we have shown it's about leadership. The leadership that we show, or the inclusivity that we feel, is not about conforming to predefined roles, but about charting new territories with confidence and determination. So I think that is what we need to do, and that is my takeaway from it, that all of us need to do that. All of us need to go back and then implement these learning strategies that we got from here in our own organizations. And then I just wanted to thank everyone, all the panelists, Madam Fazna, and everyone, all the organizers for this session. I learned a lot, and so many. I learned to look at a lot of things in a different perspective, which is quite enriching for myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mariam. And like I said, I would encourage all of you to look at all the leaders here, whether Dr. Mariam, Dr. Mavis, Shilpi, Afif, Welly Sen, all the Melrose. Look at how they've achieved success. Now we tend to follow what they're doing today. I said, as a aspiring leader, don't follow the plateau of the leader. Don't follow what they're doing today. In the morning, Dr. Mariam, what do you wake up and eat? No, don't follow that. follow the rise of that leader. Don't follow the plateau. Look what they've done in their entire life to get to their outcome. You don't see the hard work, the confidence building opportunities they've created for themselves. If you want to build your confidence, I say give yourself undeniable proof of your greatness. How? By putting in the work, doing the result, and telling yourself, see what I've done. See what I've done today. That is how you build confidence, is by doing the work and giving yourself undeniable proof of your confidence, isn't it? And that's what, whether you look at Afi from Dr. Marim, they have done that. Look at the number of degrees they've accumulated. Look at the number of businesses they've run. And I'm pretty sure it was not a smooth journey for all of them. It had its ups and downs, and that journey is what makes a leader, isn't it? Don't think somebody will give you a position and you'll become a leader. That's not how it works. You have to, it's not what you do, it's who you become that's even more important, isn't it? So keep becoming the leader every single day. Tabassum, we'd love for you to close the session out. You've been hearing patiently, you've been observing. What are your takes on that? Mel, I'm going to call on you as well next, okay? Just saying.
I have been listening to all of you, and I would just like to say that it is very important that women have the opportunity to be heard, to be included for a sustainable future. So thank you, Saurabh, thank you, Imelda, and thank you, Amnat, for having me here, for including me in today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabassum. Mel, I would particularly call on you for two reasons, because you and the team here has really put a lot of effort in a very short amount of time to bring this group together and to organize this event. That shows leadership, right? That shows greatness right there. What would you say is what inspired you to bring all these women, and tell us your why, so that people can also relate and understand why are we doing this in the long run? Mel, Imelda.
Hey, thank you. I did miss out on a little, self introduction and remarks, but to skip the introduction part, I think many in here and in Maldives know that I run a training and consultancy business. I've started serving Maldives in the year 2008, and by God's grace, He has opened many doors. And today I train about 25 resorts, and my passion still remained, and my motivation still remain, is that I have a sense of fulfillment when I see people rise up, when I see people discover their talents, when I can, together with the leaders, help them see their potential in human beings, right? And how we can, work together to develop leaders. I have a special love for Maldives, and that's really because this is the first country that I do work in. And I have helped many resorts rise up to be, the top in their trip advisors. I have a very special relationship with the people. And, a lot of my friends tease me that when I go to the Maldives, I'm like an airport rep, because I say hello to everybody. And some even tease me to say I should just migrate to the country, But I think more than that, I see through my trainings and my consultancy, there is a special need to develop the women, because I feel that many of them are not struggling in the area of work and competency. The biggest struggle in women is their self-belief, their self-acceptance, and a lot of very deep-rooted traumas and hurt and pain. And only because as a trainer and consultant, I had that opportunity to build relationships. And I'm glad that people are coming to me for help and to have a listening ear. And I think that is also the reason why it has inspired me to start up IWD together with Aminas. I want to also special credit to Afif. He was our advisor to set this up, because we look to Mark also as the trailblazer, right, to bring in excellent speakers, and also to polish the mindset of HR so that we can continuously build the nation. I want to just say something without dragging this session too long. And there are two reasons why it has ignited me to start IWD together with Aminas. One is my own struggle. I unfortunately grew up from a family background where I have emotional and verbal abuse. And for many, many years, I questioned my own self-belief and my own self-right to be included on the table. So since today you talk about inclusivity, that is my own personal journey, where I've been silenced, I have been through my relationship with my parents, questioned whether I'm even worth it to live, right? And in my youth, I even struggled depression to the point where I have to seek treatment and therapy. And by God's grace, I think, I practice self-healing in a way where I speak more positive affirmation to myself. And because of that, I've came out of that dark hole. And through my work as consultancy and training, I want to help the women to also become the best versions of themselves. And I want to just say something. Ultimately, how can we achieve greatness and fly when something heavy is holding us back, right? And how can we be a good daughter or sister when we don't know how to have emotional connection with our loved ones? How can we be a good wife when we have emotional baggage that we carry into the marriage, right? How can we be a good mother when we have traumas from our own childhood that we don't heal from? How can we be a good employee when we don't have a life goal we can work towards that bring a sense of purpose to our work? How can we be a good leader when we throw our insecurities that makes others in return doubt their own self-worth? And therefore, with our desire to help women break free from self-doubt and self-condemnation, our desire is to focus on empowering women to be the best version of themselves, not just in Maldives, but also around the world. And this is the reason why I have initiated IWD together with Aminath to hopefully spearhead something in Maldives and beyond. And I'm very happy to also announce that there are 2 more chapters opening up. Together with Dr. Safia, I am discussing IWD for the Caribbeans. And together with Dr. Mavis, I am discussing IWD for South Africa. And this is really the whole vision of IWD International, is to help spearhead many chapters around the world so that women can rise up, right? And my own takeaway from today's session, I'm really thankful for the whole very rich inclusion conversation. My takeaway for inclusion is very simple. Love yourself, embrace yourself, understand and know yourself in terms of your weakness and your strength and your unique attributes, right? So you can have a sense of belonging, and then you'll be included. So I think with that, I want to thank you for the whole panel for the session, and look forward to session 2. Saurav, back to you.
Thank you, Melda. The session is coming to a close, but for all of you, this is a beginning, and beginning starts with action, one step at a time. So I want all of you to go to the chat and write down what are you taking away from this session. Otherwise, it's like a YouTube video. You watch it and you forget about this. The real power of remembering something is retrieval. So retrieve the information you've captured, go to the chat and write down what are your takeaways.